8. This is Mr. Bainey, and we're going to take a look at, hey, what's up, Math 1? We're going to take, hello, this is Mr. Bainey. Let's take a look at lesson 11.1, parallel lines cut by a transversal. In this lesson in class, we actually use protractors just so you can get the hang of what it means to measure an angle. And also, just to get used to the, in terms of what it means to be less than 90 degrees, bigger than 90 degrees, how open the two sides are, understanding different parts. So I'm not going to go through all of that with you. I'll talk about the different parts. If you want to know how to use a protractor, please come in and see me. But we're going to be looking at the different relationships when we have our two parallel lines. So this very first page you see is actually a preview or just some review stuff that you may have seen in years past. Okay, so on the very first one, let's just talk about the different parts. We have the parts that make up an angle. So this here is the vertex, right, which is the corner of the angle. This is called the side of the angle, and then we have another side of the angle. Depending on how open these two are, right, we're going to write our measure inside here, and this is in degrees. So remember, it depends on how open the two sides are, where that vertex is. Think of like a door opening. Right, the door would open, the hinge is right here at the vertex. This is when the door is closed, right here. And when you open it up, the more open the door is, the bigger the measure is, right? So that means that if we're comparing here, number 1, this is more open than number 2, right? This one's smaller. So this would have a bigger measure in degrees than this one, okay? This one here is number 3 is more open than both of those. This is the most open out of all those. So this is like if we were to open our door quite a bit, more than 90 degrees actually, because 90 degrees is like facing, not facing, but kind of going up this way. That would be 90 degrees. And we actually use this like little box notation to indicate that it's 90 degrees. Okay. Going to number 5 and number 6, when we're dealing with angles within shapes, right? This is where it gets a little bit tricky because we have multiple angles. If I'm looking at like this angle at the very bottom of the triangle for number 5, that would be the vertex. And then here would be a side of the angle, and here's the other side. So we would write the measure there where I put this mark right here. Okay, if I use a different color, here is the vertex for this angle at that corner. Right here is the side of that angle, and here's the other side of that angle. Okay, so yes, some angles they share sides. That's what's going to happen in a lot of the figures that we see, especially the shapes that we see. The final angle that we see is over at this last corner, right? If that's the vertex, right, here is the side of that angle, and here's the other side of that angle. And if we were to use a protractor kind of looks like this, where we look at the vertex would actually go, again, I'm not going to really do this for you right now, but the vertex would go where this dot is right here. A protractor that you have or you may get in class from me is going to have a hole right there. And then we want to line up one side of the angle with 0, either this side or with 0 on this side. And then we look at where the other side is pointing to, what number. So if the side is pointing to this right here, right, then we want to look at if it started here at 0, if the first side, sorry, started here, then that means that would be 70 degrees because we're going to use the inside numbers. If the first side started over here, we're at this 0, then we'll go around and it'll be 110 degrees. Okay, so it's hard for me to explain here in this video. Again, come in and see me if you want to know more about measuring angles. Okay, here's the meat of this lesson. Here you'll see two parallel lines. And the way we mark parallel lines are with arrows that kind of look like that. Parallel means that they're not going to intersect. The transversal is this other line, this line right here. So I'm actually going to write out what a transversal is because this is probably something you haven't heard of before. A transversal is a line that intersects at least two other lines. It could intersect 3 lines or 4 lines. It's still a transversal, but it needs to intersect at least 2 other lines. So this is a transversal. And you'll see that we have 8 angles that are created, right? They're all numbered. So like angle 1 has this vertex and it has that side and that side, right? So I went and I measured these angles already. This is 60, angle 1 is 62 degrees, and angle 2 is 118 degrees using a protractor. Angle 4 measured 118 degrees, angle 3 measured 62 degrees. And if I went to the 4 angles at the bottom, angle 5 measured 62 degrees, and angle 6, 118 degrees. Angle 8, 118 degrees, and angle 7, 62 degrees. So what do you notice about these? Well, we only have 2 different measurements. There's 62 here, 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 and here, and then there's 118 degrees on the other 4 angles. And it kind of does this like zigzagging, very interesting pattern here. So if you were to use your protractor and measure those, that's what you would get. And I talked about angle relationships before. So angle relationships are if we were to pick an angle from these 4, an angle from these 4, and then another angle from those 4, right? That would, we could actually identify a relationship. We have names for these relationships also. So I'm going to write those down. Here's our angle relationships. All right, I'm at the bottom here. Our first one is called corresponding angles. So corresponding means that when we look at the first 4 and then the last 4 angles, it's the ones that are matching. Right, so I'm going to put that here. Matching, or you can think of like in the same corner. So what I mean is the same corner would be like angle 1 is in this top left corner. Angle 5 is also in this top left corner. So angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding angles. Angle 2 is in the same corner here as angle 6. Angle 3 is in the same corner as angle 7. Angle 4 is in the same corner as angle 8. Right, so our angle relationships go in pairs. And I should also mention that corresponding angles, they're always equal, right? 1 and 5 are equal. 2 and 6 are equal. 3 and 7 are equal to each other. And finally, 4 and 8 are equal to each other. All right, so I'm going to put here angle 1 and angle, what did I say? Angle 5. Angle 2 and angle 6. Angle 3 and angle 7. And I forgot to mention, I apologize, these little symbols I'm putting in front of the numbers mean angle. I should have said that. So this symbol, right, I'm writing it pretty much before every single number. That means I'm talking about an angle. And if I'm talking about an angle, that means we use degrees to measure it. Okay, that's our first angle relationship. Our second one is called alternate interior. And this has two parts to it. Alternate, think of like opposite sides, switching sides, changing sides, anything like that. When you're alternating, right? Interior means inside. And in this case, inside are two parallel lines. So remember, I need to pick an angle from the green circle and one from the yellow circle, right? We group those together. So alternate interior would be like interior. So if I have this line and this line, yeah, what's inside of those two lines? Well, 3 and 4 are inside, and 5 and 6 are inside. Yeah, think of like I'm gonna erase this, but like here's inside, right here. Here's inside. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all inside. Okay. Well, if I picked angle 4, then that's going to be on the opposite side, or if I switch to the other side, that's going to be opposite of 6. So 4 and 6, look at they're equal also, 118, 118 degrees, right? Angle 3 and angle 5 are also alternate interior. And look, they're both equal. Okay, so I'm going to write those down. We have angle, what did I say? Angle 3 and angle 5. We have also angle 4 and angle 6. Okay, those are also equal, like I said. Our next one is called alternate exterior. And this one you probably can figure out is very similar to the alternate interior, except we're going outside of our two parallel lines this time. The ones that are outside are the 1 and the 2, angle 1, angle 2, and then here at the very bottom, the angle 7, angle 8. Those are outside of our two parallel lines. And same thing with alternate, we're going to the opposite side. So angle 1, if I go to the opposite side here, it would be angle 7. Then angle 2 going opposite that side would be angle 8. Notice those are equal, right? Angle 2 and angle 8 are equal in measure. Angle 1 and angle 7 are equal in measure. Okay? Yeah, there's a reason why this is happening. So angle 1 and angle 7, it goes down. Angle 1 and angle 7. And we also have, which one was it? Angle 2 and angle 8. Okay. So these are, we still have more angle relationships, by the way, but I wanted to kind of group these all together. These are always equal. And let me add the requirement that for them to be equal, remember that the lines have to be parallel. If the lines are parallel, we have a transversal, right? All corresponding angles, all pairs of corresponding angles are equal. All pairs of alternate interior angles are equal. All pairs of alternate exterior angles are equal. The ones that aren't equal, right, I'm going to kind of write it off to the right side, would be what we call same side interior. Okay, and I'm not going to write that in parentheses what that means. Same side is kind of obvious, and interior, again, is pretty obvious. In some books or some worksheets, like the worksheet that I gave you for extra practice, instead of saying same side, it says consecutive. Okay, that means the same thing. So it'll say same side interior or consecutive interior. Right? Interior means we're looking at angles 3, 4, 5, and 6, because those are inside of our two parallel lines. Same side means we're going to If we start with angle 4, we're staying on the left side still. So angle 5. Are those equal? Nope. This is 118 and this is 62. Well, what's 118 plus 62? Well, that's equal to 180 exactly. Okay. That means that if I were to add 62 plus 118 anywhere in this picture, anywhere in here, they'll add up to 180. And that's the relationship that we get, or not our relationship, but that's the result that we get. So we have angle 4 and angle 5. Those are consecutive interior angles. We also have angle 3 and angle 6. And the result that we will always get is that they always add to 180 degrees. So if we know what one of the angles are, then we can find out what the other one is by subtracting it from 180, right? These other angle relationships are pretty simple, because if we know what angle 1 is in this picture, then angle 5 is exactly the same, right? It's always equal, okay? I do want to talk about the practice that I have you doing, and sort of how you're going to be writing your solutions down and thinking through them. So here on your assignment, I'll just talk about number 1 and number 2. This goes up to number 10. We're going to identify each pair of angles as corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, or consecutive interior. So on number 1, it just picks out 2 angles for us. So here I have angle Y right here, and then X. We want to know, what's that relationship? Well, remember that in these 4 angles, this is the top right corner. This is also an exterior angle. And in these 4 angles, this is also the top right corner. It's the same corner. And this is an interior angle, right? That's exterior. This is interior. So this is related by corresponding angles. That's their relationship. Okay. Number 2, we have this angle and this one. Well, what you might notice about both of those is that they are both exterior angles. Okay, this Y is outside the parallel lines and X is outside of the parallel lines. Also, Y is on the right side of my transversal, X is on the left side, so they're like opposite sides. So we call that alternate exterior. Their number 1 and number 2 are both done. So this is all you need to do for number 1 through 10. On the last 8 problems is we're looking at the measures of the angles. I told you that if they are corresponding alternate interior, alternate exterior, that they're going to be equal. So if you know, like if it's one of those 3, sorry, let me look at number 11. That 110 degrees in this question mark, if you know the relationship, right? If it's either corresponding alternate interior or alternate exterior, you know that this also has to be 110 degrees. Yeah. If it's consecutive interior, then you know that this and this have to add to 180 degrees. So what number plus 110 degrees is 180? Well, that has to be 70 degrees, right? So that means that number 11, the answer will either be 110 degrees or 70 degrees, because that's what's required to make it add up to 180. And so I'll put a question mark, because that's one of the answer, or one of those is the answer. I'll tell you what that is. The relationship between those 2 angles is alternate exterior. And in our notes, we wrote down that alternate exterior meant that they're equal. So that means that this question mark has to be 110 degrees. It's equal. If we found out that they were consecutive interior, then the answer would be 70 degrees. Okay, that's an example. So you're going to do the exact same thing on these other ones. I don't require that you write down the relationship, but it's a way of showing your thinking and showing your work, or even doing this right here. So, the more the better, because I don't know what's going on inside your head. So just write down what you can, and show your thinking. Okay. And this is pretty much a 50-50 shot. It's going to be, if you can subtract this from 180, it's going to be one of those two answers. That's why it's a good idea to identify your relationship first. Okay. That's it for this lesson. And I hope the assignment practice problems made sense so you can do the rest of them. Come and see me if you have any questions. Thank you. Have a good day.